right, let's begin. Let's begin. Hello, I am Dr. Neva Alexander, the CEO of Nevalliance. Today, I have an expert in front of me on immigration matters, and I have Miss Cordis, an attorney who knows her stuff. She will be talking about maintaining lawful immigration status during COVID-19. Guys, if you have any questions at all, feel free. You can write it in the Q&A section or the chat box, and she will address it at the end after she speaks. If you prefer for for her to answer your questions live, you can simply raise your hand, and there's a hand signal here in Zoom. You raise, don't worry, there will not be a video on you. We'll only hear your voice, okay? But you'll have to unmute yourself, and I will unmute you as well. That's only if you raise your hand. Other than that, you could drop your questions in the comment, in the chat box or the Q&A section. All right, guys, again, welcome to how to maintain a lawful immigration status during COVID-19. Welcome, attorney. How are you?
Hi, good day. Such a pleasure to be here despite the situation. You know, COVID has all of us confined home, and New York only recently reopened in phase 2. So we're back in the office today. And I'm excited to partner with Dr. Neva Alexander on this program, How to Maintain Lawful Immigration Status. Now, if you're here, welcome. If you have a question, please be sure to type it in the chat box. Now, whatever I say here today is not to be construed as personal legal advice to your particular situation. It is just general advice that I'm providing based on immigration laws. Your particular circumstance may change based on how you may have entered or how long you are in the US. So for the purposes of who this forum is addressed, primarily focusing on persons who are visiting the US and persons who have conditional status here in the US. So if you're a visitor, you basically would have entered the US at some point in time, and you would have been given a certain time to remain, whether it's 6 months, 1 month. If you don't know how long that time is, you can always look on your I-94, which is available online, and that will tell you what your permitted stay in the US is. Now, if your permitted stay expired prior to the start of COVID, this conference does not apply to you. What I'm saying to you is the maintaining of the lawful status are only beneficial here for persons who have been affected by COVID. So if you were here in January of this year, 2020, and your lawful status expired on January 30th of 2020, then you are out of status. However, if you are here in March of 2020 and your lawful status expired in April or May or this month, June of 2020, then this forum is going to be helpful to you because we want to try to keep you in lawful status. And how do we go about doing that? The USCIS has an application that you can file to extend your lawful status here in the US. It's called Form I-539. And that form, you can file it online if you're the only person who entered the US on your passport. If you came in with a family member or with children or a spouse, you will have to file that form by way of paper application. That means you will have to print the form out from the uscis.gov website and mail it in to their address. That form costs $455, plus there is a fingerprint fee of $85 that you have to mail in with the application. Now, if you're the only person on your form, you can file that form online. However, if you have children or a spouse, you must file that application by mail. And I know there are a lot of people here who are wondering, oh my, I can't afford that $455. What can I do? I do not have any money. My family don't have any money to help me with that. What are my options in that situation? Well, there's good news. There is a form called the I-912, which is a fee waiver form that you can fill in and send into the USCIS together with your I-539 form to extend your lawful status. Now, you have to provide specific information on that form in order to obtain the benefit. So on the I-912 form, you're basically asking the USCIS to waive the fees. Okay, you're telling them that I cannot afford to pay the $4,555 fee. To do so, you have to provide documentation explaining your situation and why the fee should be waived in your favor. You can get an affidavit from someone respectable in your community to attest to the fact that you're staying with them at their home, or you're staying at a friend's home, or you're staying at a hotel and you cannot afford a hotel anymore. And this is the reason why you're asking for a fee waiver. You also have to provide supplemental information to support your claim as to why you must maintain your lawful status here in the US. Now, how do you do that? What information do you provide to show that you should remain in the US even though your status would have expired from March to present? Now, if you're in any state that's affected by COVID, when you file for your extension of time, you must document why you are still here in the US and how long you perceive your stay to be. So let's say, for example, your authorized stay expired on March 30th, and you didn't file the extension of time. The USCIS has given a grace period to allow you to file your extension of time. So when you file your extension of time, you must provide documentation to show, okay, this is the reason why I did not leave the US on March 30th or before March 30th. And the first reason, COVID-19. You must specify that you were stranded in the US because of COVID-19. And you have to provide examples of why. One will be the airports were closed. We couldn't fly. There was a quarantine. We couldn't leave our homes. We couldn't leave the state. And wherever your destination country was, let's say you're going to the islands, or you're going to Europe, or you're going to China, you will also provide documentation to show that your destination country was closed. So if you can just produce documentation from the internet, any government release to show that, let's say the airport in England was closed, they weren't allowing visitors from the US to enter, or the airport from Jamaica is closed, they weren't allowing persons to enter, and that will be the documentation that you will provide simultaneous with your application to extend your stay. Okay? Now, you must be clear in your documentation. In addition to that, you must provide how long you foresee being here in the US. So if you think you will need to be here for another 6 months, then on your application to extend the time, you must provide that, okay, I'm gonna leave in 6 months. I'm gonna leave by December 1st of 2020. And you will provide a copy of your ticket to show that you have a return ticket to leave the US. Now, if your ticket hasn't been renewed, you can go on the whatever airline website and you can get supporting documents to show that the airline is not flying out, or they're not issuing flights up until, they will tell you check back in 30 days or check back in 90 days. So you can provide that supplemental documentation along with your current return ticket when you submit this application to extend your time. So just so that I can go it over and everyone is clear, if your authorized time in the US expired between March 16th and today's date, you are eligible to apply for an extension of time even though the time has passed, provided you can show that your authorized stay in the US was due to COVID. You must be able to document that your stay was due to COVID. So if your lawful stay expired in December, there was no COVID documented in the US with a quarantine in December of 2019. So this relief is not available to you. If you're in a state, let's say you're in Texas or you're in Florida, and your permitted time is going to expire maybe in a week or two, now is the time to put in your application to extend the time. Please do not wait until the time has expired. It's always good practice to submit your documentation before the deadline. Now, whatever document you submit to immigration, you want to make sure you keep a copy of it, and you want to send it registered mail with return receipt so that you have some form of tracking. If in case there is an issue when you want to re-enter the US, you must be able to show them that I was here during COVID and I applied for the extension of time. Now, just a little quick tip. You must know that when you apply for an extension of time, you're just going to get a receipt. You're not going to get an approval within the time that you're seeking. So if you ask for 6 months, you're not going to get your approval until maybe month 7. Immigration is presuming that you would have already left the US. That is the reason why you need to document and keep copies of proof of submission of your extension of time application so that it won't affect you in the future. Very important. Now, if you are here in the US and you have conditional status, and your conditional status is about to expire, you must maintain your lawful status even though immigration has reduced their workload. So if you have a 2-year green card that's based on marriage, or you're a child and your green card was issued based on a marriage of a parent and it's going to expire at any time, you must file your application to remove the condition on your green card within 90 days of the date of expiration. So if your conditional green card is going to expire on June 30th, now is the time to apply for the removal of the condition. If your card is going to expire anytime in August, now is the time to apply for the extension. If your time already expired and you haven't filed for the removal of condition, you must do so now and provide an explanation as to why you were not able to submit your application to remove the condition timely. So let's say your lawful time expired on April 30th of this year. That means when you submit your application to remove the condition on your green card, you must document why you were not able to submit your application to remove condition before April 30th. One of the reasons that you can provide is COVID-19. And you must document that you were affected by COVID-19. For example, you provide proof that the state in which you reside was under quarantine. For example, if you're in New York, the governor issued a quarantine order. Everyone was required to stay home. Places of business were closed. Most persons were required to work from home unless they're essential workers. So in this instance, if you were here as a conditional resident and your job was such that you were required to work from home and you couldn't leave, then you must be able to document that in your application to remove the condition on the green card. Bearing in mind, these applications take 1 year for determination, but you must be able to document at the time of submission why you were late. So going over, if you're a visitor, application to extend the time is Form I-539. And if you are a conditional resident, the application to remove your condition is Form I-751.
Thank you so much. That's a lot of information that you gave. And I just have a few questions. Guys, if you have any questions, we're also live on Facebook at this time. If you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A section or on Facebook. I'll be going back and forth. You can drop it in the comment section. Now, my question, Attorney